Welcome back to the Golden Eagle broadcast on 89.1 The Point and 891thepoint.com. Today's broadcast brought to you by Dallinger's Inn & Suites. Matt Seltzer once again welcoming the Rochester Razorsharks head coach Chris Daleo to the show. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Oh, it's fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Well, what are your thoughts on the start to this season, at least the first game? You travel out, you beat division rival Jamestown by 34 points. How well would you say your team met any expectations you might have had?
You know what? We're a young club, and each week of practice that goes by, we become better and better and better. So we're on our way to Boston right now, and then we have a home game next Thursday. So each week we see improvements, and really it's just improvement with our defense rotations and getting to know our strengths and weaknesses. So I know we're going to be a better team come the 6th game of the season, and then a better team come the 12th game of the season, and so on and so on and so on. So it's kind of exciting to see a club come together like that.
And besides that first game, you said young team. Your team's looking pretty good, although did take the second game. It was a loss by 20 points to non-divisional Kentucky. How did you see that game progress in your eyes?
You know what? Yeah, it was 20, but to be honest with you, we kind of played out the string a little bit, and then we worked. We were never completely out of it, but we were never able to get over the hump. It was always 8 or 9. And even with a couple minutes to go, we tried to just work on some things, and we weren't going to come back. So, yeah, you can make excuses about the points being what they were, but it was kind of a work in progress type of game for us. It's the second game of the year. We watched film afterwards. We can see a lot of the mistakes that we made. Guys recognize those now, so that's kind of cool. But, then they came right back and they beat Providence by 13. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, we're waiting to see. We'll play Boston. If we win that game, we go to 3-1. Then we have a home game. We win that game 4-1, and then we start stacking them up. So, one loss is not a season make, nor do you throw the baby out with the bathwater with it either, you know?
Yeah. And what would you say you saw heading into that Providence victory? I mean, it was also the home opener. How would you describe that atmosphere, just being at home?
You know what? Guys were anxious to play at home. It was on ESPN3, which they were very excited about. They had a good crowd. You had close to 3,900 in the house. Anytime you can play like that in front of a good crowd on your home floor and on ESPN3 for their friends and family back home, it was nice to get off a pretty convincing victory.
Now, last time we also spoke about how Biz Marquis, he was going to be the halftime performance. Could you tell if there was any difference heading into the next half, at least from the crowd energy?
You know, the crowd really liked it. I think they liked it because we picked up full court press. It was an exciting game, and we weren't keeping our bench, which is always good. We had double-digit scoring for a wide variety of people. We spread our minutes out a little bit, so everybody got a chance to showcase their skills. And like I said, it was a good growth game. Coming back off the game against Kentucky, come back with a home win. Now we've had a good week's worth of practice. We take care of business in Boston, and like I said, start stacking them up.
You talk about this national attention with ESPN. Do you feel like there's a little more motivation at home? At least it's only been one game, but can you tell your players they know they're on the spotlight when they're in that circumstance?
Well, yeah, because, a lot of them have families back home or friends back home where they can tune in and watch that. And so everybody wants to perform well, when friends and family are watching the game. So whether it's on ESPN or the Cube or whatever, whenever you got friends and family watching, you certainly want to perform at your all-time best. So that was nice. The next Thursday's game at home, which we play at Blue Cross Arena in Rochester, that'll be on ESPN3 again. So I think it's important, and players know that. They want to get good film so they can showcase themselves to overseas clubs. They want to showcase themselves well in front of family and friends. And I think ESPN's a great vehicle for that to allow friends and family to see them.
Once again, Matt Seltzer speaking to the Rochester Razorsharks head coach Chris Daleo on 89.1 The Point and 891thepoint.com. So prior to the home opener, it was also announced a day before that Robert Wagner, or Big Bob as they call him, was signed to a 4-game contract. The man who stands at a staggering 7 foot 7.5 feet tall with size 23 shoes. What's it like having the tallest active basketball player in the world on your team?
Big Bob's a great, affable guy. And that's what's nice about it. He didn't come in with a lot of demands about playing time or what he has to do. He's just there to adjust to the situation. He's going to be going away to school soon. The crowd really likes him. He's great at appearances. People flock to him to get their picture taken with him. He takes it all with a great grain of salt. He has a big heart, and it's fun having him around. We got him a few minutes against Providence. We hope to get him a few minutes against on our home game on Thursday. But it's been interesting, to hear his perspectives on where he's going with his life and where he's been. And then, he's an entertaining guy, so it has not been a distraction by any means. If anything, it's been an asset.
Big Bob, he's also going to be at the Special Olympics volleyball tournament tomorrow back in Rochester. So any plans for him trying to make it out to New England?
No, he did not make the trip. He doesn't make road trips, only home ones. Usually when we're on the road, like we are here against Boston, he's making an appearance in Rochester to promote the Razorsharks. And
as you head into tomorrow's matchup in Boston, how's the road treating you guys, and what do you think about this upcoming matchup?
Well, we just have to take care of our business. And like I said, when we watch film every week, guys are now starting to see the mistakes that they make and understand their defensive lapses or what better shot selection they can take offensively. So that's good. It's kind of to the point now where my club is almost to the point where they can run themselves, and that's where you want to be as a coach. You don't want to always have a heavy hand. You don't always have to have constant input. Players need to know what they have to do. You have to train them and to know where they have to be, how they have to get there to that spot on that floor. And we're almost to that point. A couple more ball games, a couple more weeks worth of practice, and they'll be able to run themselves. And that's a good feeling as far as the coach is concerned. Whenever you take a group, get them finally tuned into what you need to get done, and then away they go. And so we're almost there.
How much input would you say you've had to put into these past few games, and especially at halftime, you go into the locker rooms? What do you try to say to the guys?
Well, it's the same thing. Our principles remain the same. It's just a question that we have to do what we've been trained to do. And whatever adjustments we have to make, we got to make them on the fly, and then make sure guys adhere to those adjustments. And like I said, when you have a group of players, 12 players, from differing basketball backgrounds and differing basketball IQs, the first couple of games are always going to be rough because you got a short vets camp, you got a short couple of games coming up. But then, like I said, come the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th game, they're really running their show if the coaching staff is doing their job. And like I said, so far, we're on a positive note, and we're going to keep on going. And like I said, let's start stacking up some wins like Portwood, because winning cures a lot of ills, and winning makes everything look a heck of a lot better.
Speaking of trying to stay positive, and we also talked about Wagner, let's focus on Mark St. Fort. He's caught people's attention. 14 points off the bench. He had a team-leading 9 rebounds last game. How encouraging would you say it is knowing you have someone such as him who could become the next strong 6th man for your team?
Well, I've always liked Mark due to his athleticism. He absorbs things very quickly on the floor. He knows where he has to be and how he has to get to that point. He's a high-energy player who rebounds and can score around the basket. We're working on him on his perimeter skills, and he's a joy to coach, and he's a great kid. And I knew the fans in Rochester, once they get to know him a little bit more and see him out there floor a little more, he's going to be one of those fan favorites because he does work so hard. He's always in early. He always stays late at practice, and he's really a joy to coach. And I'm glad he's achieving some level of success. Now we got to build on that success to have some level of consistency with that success. So I'm pretty happy with him.
Who else would you say is on the team that fans may not know about at the moment, may not get the most minutes, but you see as potentially becoming an asset to the team heading forward?
Well, it's kind of good because we rotate our players, we rotate our starting lineup. Sidney Holmes is another one, that really makes the most out of his playing ability. Rebounds the ball well. He and Mark St. Fort usually trade off time at the power forward spot. Josh Chichester, I think, is really coming along very well in the center spot. Having made the transition from a Canadian football player now to a basketball player, he's really working well with his footwork in the low post, his energy he brings on the floor, his rebounding, his scoring touch. Josh Chichester, I think, has a bright future. He just needs a little more seasoning. Those are some names I think that people are really, once you start to hone in on Rochester basketball, that they're really going to really get to know and really like watching them play.
How would you say that process went in terms of him coming from the Canadian Football League? Was it recent and you were part of the process, or was he on the team and you just learned about his background?
You know what? He played football at University of Louisville. Then he was supposed to get drafted, I think, by the Saints, as I recall. And then he didn't get drafted by the NFL. He went up to play for the Canadian Football League for a couple of years. He got tired of it and says, I'm going to try basketball. He went and played for me last year in another league for another club, and then he was an easy signing to come up to represent the Razorsharks this year. So I've been with Josh now for about a year and a half, and he's has a tremendous upside to him because he's so athletic. He moves so well. It's just a question of him just honing his basketball skills, and he'll be able to make a living in basketball somewhere in the future.
Well, it's still early in the season, but what are your thoughts on the Northeast Division progressing heading forward in the standings? And even what are your thoughts on the level of competition?
Well, competitions vary, but like they say, the old cliche says, any given Sunday, any given team. So we have to take, here's another cliche I'll throw at you. I'm a man of Mr. Cliches today. We just have to take one game at a time. But our goal is to win our conference, and our goal is to advance to the finals, and then our goal is to beat whoever we have to face in the finals, and our goal is to ultimately win the championship. I mean, that's why you do it. The goal is to win championships. And even though we're taking it one day at a time, we have to look at where we're going to be in February and where we're going to have to be in March, what changes we have to make, what things we have to implement for the sole purpose of winning championships. And that's why we're here. So away we go with that.
Once again, Matt Seltzer speaking to the Rochester Razorsharks head coach Chris Daleo on 89.1 The Point and 891thepoint.com. Today's broadcast made possible by Dollingers and Sweets. Hey, Coach, thank you so much for the time, and best of luck in the future, especially on the trip you're taking right now.
Thanks. We're on the bus watching The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio, and it's pretty darn good, I might say.
Glad to keep you guys, distracted and focused on something else for once.
There you go, pal. Yeah, it's great to hear from you. Thanks for calling.